Good morning to my lecturers and my friends. Today I'm going to present my research proposal entitled Exploring the Use of Information Gap Activity in Speaking Class. Chapter 1 Introduction. Speaking is one of the skills that is being emphasized in Malaysia education system as it is a means of communication. It is used to convey messages, express ideas and thoughts to someone. As Richard 2008 states that the mastery of the speaking skills in English is a priority for many second language or foreign language learners. This means that the students should prioritize the learning of the speaking skill in order to ease their communication. And in fact, Malaysian education system does emphasis on the teaching of the speaking skills in the class. Evidently, Malaysian students are taught speaking since they are in kindergarten level up to university level, and they are expected to achieve certain level of competency as what is stated in the curriculum syllabus. According to Ministry of Education 2015, students are expected to be able to communicate with their peers and adults confidently and appropriately in formal and informal situations at the end of the year's schooling. Apparently, this shows that speaking skill is important in the process of teaching and learning in order to produce the learners that have high communicative ability. In Malaysian ESL classroom, it is found out that there was a lack of interaction among the students and not much of the communicative activities were carried out that promote negotiation of meaning through interaction. This is evident in a study carried out by Rahman 2014 who reported that the English teachers at a primary school in Malaysia were more concerned about teaching. The classroom interactions were more dominated by the teacher taught and it focused on rote learning. Also, Juliana Othman 2010 in her study found out that only 14.6% of teachers carry out abundance of communicative activities such as role plays, simulations, and presentations to promote speaking skills. Although there are communicative activities that carry out, however, there are no communicative activities that can promote negotiation of meaning in the interaction between the students. Doty and Pika 1986 found out that the task with the requirement for information exchange, such as information gap activity, is crucial to generation of negotiation meaning through interaction. While there are a lot of studies carried out to investigate the interaction between native speaker and non-native speakers, however, there are no current literature is found a study with the consideration on how the information gap activity can trigger negotiation in meaning among the students in a national type Chinese school. In Malaysia ESL primary classroom, it is hardly to find any native speaker in a language classroom. Hence, rather than pairing up the students with native speaker and non-native speaker, students with average level of language proficiency will be paired up with the student with low level of language proficiency to generate negotiation of meaning through interaction in information gap activity in this study. The aim of this research is to find out the patterns of negotiation of meaning during the interaction through information gap activity. The objective is to explore the patterns of negotiation of meaning in interaction between average learners and basic learners in the information gap activity. The research question of this study will be, what are the patterns of the negotiation of meaning in the interaction between average learners and basic learners in the information gap activity? The scope of this study is the research will be conducted during the second phase of practicum at one national type Chinese school around Kuala Lumpur. I will be conducting research by carrying out information gap activity in the speaking lesson. and the students will be given the information gap task to communicate and interact. In this activity, there are 3 pairs of students that will be chosen as the samples. I will also record the process of the interaction and transcribe it to answer my research question. The limitation of this study will be I will only use information gap tasks to promote negotiation of meaning. Hence, the findings shall not be generalized to other communicative tasks. And the patterns of the negotiation in meaning that I'm going to identify in the interactions will be repetitions, confirmation checks, comprehension checks, clarification requests, word coinage, corrections, approximations, non-verbal expression of non-understanding. It is hoped that this research can benefit 3 types of persons, include researchers, educators, individuals in the study. It is hoped that the researchers can take its importance due to the absence of the previous study in dealing with the use of information gap activities in building negotiation in meaning among the students in National Type Chinese School. Also, the research will shed the light with the educators on the importance of information gap activities to promote students' interaction. Thirdly, this study will also benefit the individuals in the study, which are the students. This will help them to produce more speech through negotiation in meaning in an information gap activity, which will later help to increase their interaction with the peers and the teachers, which will facilitate the process of the second language acquisition. In this study, there are 3 terms that will be used. First, information gap activity. According to Rapto, information gap activities requires one person has certain information that must be shared with others in order to solve problem, gather information, or make decisions. Information gap activity refers to the information where there is a gap whereby the learners have to communicate and interact in order to find out the differences between 2 pictures. The second term that is used in this research is speaking. Speaking requires extensive response from both of the students in order to make the conversation goes on that leads to negotiation of meaning. Third term that is being used in this research is negotiation of meaning. In this study, negotiation of meaning is the conversational strategies that is being used by the learners when they face the communication breakdowns. Chapter 2, Literature Review. I adopt the Michael Long's interaction hypothesis. In Michael Long's interaction hypothesis, negotiation of meaning is the key element in the interaction in second language acquisition. In general, negotiation of meaning is the conversational adjustment made in the interaction between the learners and the interlocutors when there is communication breakdown. Richards and Smith argues that negotiation of meaning happens when interlocutors attempt to overcome problems in conveying their meaning, resulting in both additional input and useful feedback on the learner's own production. This implies that the frequency of the occurrence of the negotiation of meaning will bring about the negative feedback and input modification to increase the comprehensibility and the content predictability. Negotiation of meaning can assist learners' second language acquisition in 3 principal aspects. Firstly, Long claims that negotiation of meaning enables learners to modify the input to their level of comprehensibility. In other words, negotiation of meaning helps them in receiving the comprehensible input that is necessary for second language acquisition. Secondly, it also triggers the learners to make adjustments on their own output to make themselves understood. According to Swain 1985, Learners are being pushed toward the delivery of a message that is not only conveyed, but conveyed precisely, coherently, and appropriately. Thirdly, negotiation of meaning provides useful feedback for the learners to attempt at the target language. Feedback is important because it determines the strategy to be used in order to communicate the intended meaning successfully. According to Brown 2001, information gap is a task that involves conveying or requesting information from the pair. In information gap activity, when the learners experiences the difficulties in understanding the messages, the gap pushes them to employ conversational strategy to complete the task. And this process of negotiation of meaning has led language learners to greater awareness of their language and hence further develops the language proficiencies. Negotiation of meaning can contribute to second language acquisition because while the learners are working out the meaning, it promotes better understanding of words and structures that beyond their current level, which will produce comprehensible input and eventually they will integrate them into second language acquisition. A study conducted by Abdullah 2001 investigated how Indonesian and Chinese international postgraduate students negotiate meaning in English communication, and the findings revealed that more than half of the total percentage of negotiation meaning strategies was employed by the students in information gap activity. In the study conducted by Tyler and Lyer 2001, which investigated how meaning is negotiated in the interactions between native speaker and non-native speakers interlocutors using conversational activity and information gap activity. And the results reveal that information gap activities promote greater repair negotiation. This also shows that information gap activity did actually elicit negotiation of meaning between the learners. So this is the conceptual framework. According to Michael Long's interaction hypothesis, during the information gap activity, the learners will interact and communicate with each other to find the missing pieces of the information. And this process of interaction actually involved in the process of negotiation of meaning. And this negotiation of meaning will lead to the modified input. When the input is being modified to make themselves understood, the input will become comprehensible to the learners. When the input becomes comprehensible to the learners, it will lead to second language acquisition. Now I will talk about Chapter 3, methodology of this research. This study adopts discourse analysis and basic qualitative research designed to answer the proposed research question. Basic qualitative research design is used due to the qualitative techniques can yield a richer and more insightful data into underlying reasons and patterns within the phenomena. And a discourse analysis is a study of naturally occurring discourse in the conversation. It requires detailed analysis of specific structure of discourse and interaction between two or more speakers to understand how meanings are constructed. The research focuses on the process of interaction between the students in information gap activity, which aim to explore the patterns of negotiation of meaning in the conversation. And the research analyzes the patterns of negotiation of meaning from every specific structure of discourse in the transcription that derive from the video recorded. The data is then strengthened by the retrospection sessions carried out with the participants. Hence, the dissection of the words, phrases, and sentences enable extensive explanation and interpretation of negotiation strategies to be made in understanding how meanings are constructed through interaction in the communicative task. For the sampling technique that is used in this research, I use purposive sampling. Purposive sampling can target a particular population and select participants based on affiliation with the group in order to provide information that cannot be obtained from the other choices. This means that purposive sampling enables me to choose the participants that which I think it could help to answer my research question. By using purposive sampling, the samples chosen for this study is 6-year 4 students in National Type Chinese School with 3 average proficiency level students and 3 basic proficiency level students. These students with different level of proficiencies are then will be paired up to form 3 pairs in the study. For the research instrument used in this research study, first I will use information gap task, which is finding differences. Both participants will get different pictures. For example, student A will get picture A, student B will get picture B. And what they have to do is they have to find the differences and similarities between these two pictures. Second research instrument that I will be used in this study is videotape. Videotape is used as it can capture the context of the interactions and allows repeated revisions in order to create a code for the comprehensive analysis of the phenomenon. During the interaction between the participants, the videotape is used to record the whole process of interaction for transcription and data analysis. The third research instrument that I will use in this research study is retrospection. Retrospection refers to an interview that takes place immediately after the task and the only cue is a transcript of the original speech. Retrospection in this study will be carried out immediately after the information gap task ends in order to extract the participants' feedback regarding the reasons to use the particular negotiation strategies in order to verify the categorization of the conversational tactics. Next, I will proceed to 3.4 pilot study. Pilot study is a small scale of a complete survey for the particular research instruments in the study. Before the intended study is being conducted, pilot study will carry out in order to fine-tuning the research instruments. This is to help to identify whether or not the research instruments can yield the results that help me to answer the research questions. And the participants' interaction while exchanging information with each other will be the focus of this pilot study. This is to ensure the validity of the research instrument. In order to establish the validity of the findings, member checking strategy will be used in this study. This procedure involves in a follow-up retrospection with the participants in a study and allowing them to comment on the findings. In this process, the participants are required to report about the rationale behind every negotiation strategies that is being applied in the interaction in order to increase the accuracy of the findings. In order to establish the reliability of this research, qualitative reliability procedure by Gibbs 2007 is being applied in this study. During the coding process, I have to ensure that there is no shift of meaning of the codes. This can be done by constantly comparing the specific structures of the discourse analyzed to the definitions of each negotiation strategy suggested by Lon, Picard, and Doty in order to ensure the consistency of the result. Next, data collection procedure. In the process of data collection, first I will video record the interactions between the participants during the information gap task is carried out. After video record, I will conduct a retrospection session immediately after the information gap task ends in order to gather data from the participants in order to confirm the negotiation strategies utilized by them in a conversation. By replaying the recorded video as cue, I will ask the participants to recall about the particular moments of the communication breakdown, and they will have to report about the rationale behind for employing those particular strategies in the conversation. Then the data is obtained from the transcription and retrospection. Data analysis procedure. Firstly, I will organize the data for analysis. The data collected from the video recorded and also retrospection will be sorted in order for analysis. After that, I will read all the data in order to provide a sense of information. This follows by the coding process whereby I will read through all the conversations and I will identify the negotiation of meaning strategies used by the participants. Then I will label the strategies used according to the coding scheme suggested by Long, Ika, and Doty. After categorizing all the data according to their categories, I will generate description of the categories for analysis. Based on the retrospection, the detailed descriptions about the particular negotiation strategies are generated. After that, I will represent the description in a qualitative narrative. The findings will be described in the narrative form. Then the interpretation will be made towards the findings to find out the pattern of the negotiation of meaning in the interaction between the learners in information gap activity. Lastly, I will draw conclusion based on the interpretation of the findings. So these are my references. That's all from me. Thank you.